Hello friends, this is Worm with strangely mismatched gameplay footage. And today, I wanted to talk about exotics because there are a lot of exotics in the game that they just, quite frankly, suck, right? Of course, we know that every so often we get passes that change some of the exotics that really don't have a place in the meta or in anybody's loadout period. But today I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about three of these from the Titan subclass, and tomorrow we'll do, Warlock or Hunter, and then Friday we'll continue on. But I wanted to talk about a couple of exotics that just don't really feel like they have any place whatsoever in any build. Like there's literally no reason to use these exotics, right? And I picked these not based on usage numbers. These are more, my personal opinions, things that I would never use because they're bad, or things that I just never see anybody literally ever use, right? So yeah, let's start off with Titan exotics that suck and that need a rework. And of course, the first and foremost one that comes to mind is Mask of the Quiet One, right? And Mask of the Quiet One, it came with it's a vanilla D1 sorry, not D1, a vanilla D2 exotic, right? Its power, let me pull it up here. Basically, when you are critically wounded, your any kill you get will regen your health. Now, mind you, health is not the same as health and shields. You don't get, full health. It is, you get, I think it's like 70 HP, right? I think that's where your shields are officially gone, and it's now your actual HP, right? And so every time you get a kill, you get 70 HP back, but it caps at that 70 HP. So it heals you up to 70 HP, and that's it, right? So if you are taking damage and you get a kill and you're at 69 HP, it'll heal you back up to 70. So it'll heal you 1 HP. But of course, if you are literally pubed and you have 1 HP left, it will heal you back to 70 HP. So it's really kind of in a weird spot. It wants you to be injured and critically wounded, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that it does is whenever you take damage, it gives you ability energy, right? This has a small cooldown. I think it's like 1 or maybe it's 2 seconds, but basically every time you take damage, you get like 5, maybe 3 to 5% of your ability energies back, which, to be fair, this is really not horrible, right? Because like as long as you're taking damage, you're getting your abilities back pretty quickly, right? The problem is, in this current sandbox that we're in, there are so many ways to get your abilities back so fast. What's the point of doing this? Not only that, but we're living in an age where, being healthy is very easy to do. You've got things like restoration on solar, like you've got all kinds of different stuff. You have aspects and fragments that will heal you over time. So it's almost harder to stay injured than it is to actually be injured. Not only that, but of course, when you're in the red health, like literally, especially in content where it matters, everything is going to one-shot kill you, right? So it's like, what's the point of being in red health, right? And that's what this exotic wants you to do. It has this, role that it fills. It wants you to be like in the battle, it's an exotic that wants you to go down fighting, right? It says, hey, like we want to reward you for being right there in the fray. And I really feel like this is something that this exotic could do wonderfully. So I have a list of changes here. I don't really know I don't know if they would all work all together. It might be OP, but the first change here, it wants you to be injured constantly, but it offers you not a whole lot in the way of keeping you alive, right? Like, yeah, it gives you that 70 HP, which isn't bad, but at the same time, anything in a Grandmaster is going to shoot you, or is going to one-shot kill you, right? Like the helmet currently is, it wants to make you a glass cannon, but it's more like a glass BB gun, right? So why don't we, first of all, increase survivability, not by a whole lot, but just by a little bit, right? So when you are critically wounded, Mask of the Quiet One should give you like an additional 30 to 40% damage resistance, right? So if you're rocking tier 10 resilience, You know, you've already got that 30% DR. What is another 40 on top of that? Like that's, if you add them together, which I don't think that's how it actually works, but that's like 70% damage resistance when you are red health. And it's only applying when you are red health, right? That would be one of the biggest changes I think that they could add to this helmet. Because again, then it would allow you maybe some wiggle room to not get just one shot down, right? You know, and then you could pair it with things like woven mail for like just like, you know, almost 99% damage reduction, right? Like I think that that would be a really, really strong option to, again, turn you into a, you know, you're in the red health, you are technically running around, you are putting yourself in danger, right? Because a boss stomp is still going to kill you no matter how much DR you have and stuff like that. Or it requires you to build heavily into it. But I think that that would be a really, really fun change that they could do. But I think that something that would go with that change would have to be something with the abilities, right? And again, you know, this exotic, it wants you to be like injured and in the fray. It wants you to be critically wounded. It wants you to go down fighting. So I think the whole, you know, the way the energy regeneration works should be completely changed, right? Now, whenever you are whenever you're in, you have your shields up, nothing happens, right? You don't get any ability energy no matter how much damage you take, blah blah blah. But the second that your shields are gone, right, then all of your abilities have a like 600 700% cooldown, right? So you're getting your grenade, your melee, and your class ability back incredibly fast, right? Again, this would promote players, hey, like being in the red is where you want to be, because, you know, number one, you're getting a, you know, a damage reduction against you. Number two, now you're getting mad fast ability cooldowns, right? You're getting incredibly fast ability cooldowns. And then the third thing that I would actually do is you could add some sort of surge mod. And I know I don't like the idea of just slapping a surge mod on an exotic and calling it a day. I think that's a very lazy route to go. But at the same time, I think Mask of the Quiet One is an exotic that would actually benefit tremendously from that, right? When you are critically wounded, you get like, you know, you get however long you get, you get an untime, you get an unlimited timer on your ×4 surge stacks, right? And as long as you're injured, you have that bonus to your kinetic weapons and the class that matches your subclass, right? So if you're on Void and you're using Gnawing Hunger, you get a 25% damage boost to Gnawing Hunger as long as you're in red health. Or, you know, hell, you do Solar, right? Do Solar, Lorelei Split, not Lorelei Splitter, sorry. Do you use Solar, use Tommy's Matchbook, then you're literally always in the red. You've got max recovery, which is fantastic. Then you've got damage resistance. Like there's a lot of really cool builds that you could do with this. And of course you're getting that damage boost on top of it. And these are three changes I would say that, you know, again, maybe it would be overpowered. I don't know. It'd be something that we'd have to see how it works in the Crucible, right? But in PvE, I don't think this would be overpowered, because again, you are sitting at red health. Like that's a dangerous place to be. Right. And I don't, maybe my damage number or my damage resistance numbers here are a little bit off, because obviously we don't want players to be invincible when they're in red health. Like it still should be somewhat of a glass cannon. But I think just currently there's not enough benefits to being this glass cannon. I mean, really, like what is getting set like your 70 HP back when you're in the red, and especially in-game content where if you're in the red, you're getting one shot anyways. This helmet really needs a rework, and I think that the rework that I mentioned here would be a fantastic and a really fun one. Like I could definitely see myself using this in the future and putting together some really fun builds, some good strand builds, some good solar builds, even some good void builds possibly. But yeah, that's Mask of the Quiet One. That's the first one I wanted to talk about. The second one, and this one is I debated, because there's a lot of exotics that like don't get much usage, but I think that's not Peregrine Green, sorry, the MK44 or the Mark 44 stand-asides are the next exotic that really need some type of a rework, right? So basically the way that they work now is they grant an overshield. I'm reading it, by the way. It grants an overshield when you're sprinting at full health with any of the shoulder charge abilities. So shield bash, hammer strike, and seismic strike. And whenever you get a hit with those abilities, it recharges a portion of your melee. Basically, landing a hit will give you 50% of your melee back. These are incredibly weak, right? First of all, like let's acknowledge the fact that the shoulder charge abilities themselves really aren't all that great. Like you have on Void, you have a ranged melee ability. On Solar, you also have a ranged melee ability. On Arc, you have a freaking Thunder Punch, you know, Thunderclap, which is incredibly strong. You literally punch things with a massive like blast of lightning, right? Or you can fly in from the sky and just obliterate things. But again, not looking at the actual abilities themselves, this exotic is just kind of weak, right? The first change I think that Bungie could potentially do to make this a better, you know, a better exotic is remove the whole having to be at full health when sprinting to activate this, right? Instead of doing that, have it anytime you start sprinting, and it says here, once you've sprinted for 0.5 seconds with your shoulder charge or whatever, then you get a overshield that charges 75 HP is what it is, charges up over 3 seconds, right? So you sprint, you start getting it over 3 seconds, it charges up all the way. Once you stop sprinting, you lose the overshield. I think that this is this is pretty decent. The overshield's pretty good, right? But the class ability that you get back, the 50% energy, they should just make it, you get your class ability back. And I know somebody's going to say, oh, but Worm, that would make the insurmountable skull fort irrelevant. No, insurmountable skull fort can still be paired with Ballistic Slam and Thunderclap, which are insanely good melees, right? So you get your whole shield bash energy back whenever you just smack into, you know, a bunch of enemies, right? That's the first thing. The second thing I would say you could take, and the effects that come from these shoulder charge abilities have just a little bit of a bigger radius, right? Like they increase the radius by a meter. So Seismic Strike, when you hit an enemy, that radius is extended by 1 meter, right? Or even better, even more fun, Bungie could potentially make it where, you know, you can, sorry, Bungie can, trying to think here. I'm trying to think of a way to word this, right? So it doesn't sound, so I don't sound like an idiot. Bungie could have it so that whenever you deal damage to a higher health target, like depending on the tier of the enemy that you are actually shoulder charging, you get a bigger radius, right? So if you run in and you shoulder charge a Dreg, right, and you kill the Dreg, it's a normal size radius. But if you run in and you shoulder charge, say, a boss, it's a much larger area of effect that shoulder charge has. Not only that, but I think that another really cool thing they could do for these exotics is when you successfully land a hit with the shoulder charge ability, you are granted an additional overshield, right? Or that overshield, better yet, here's one for you. If you are running and you get that overshield fully charged, then you're given a reserve overshield, right? Then when you smack an enemy, you run in, you smack an enemy, that reserve or overshield is immediately deployed to you, and it lasts for like 10 seconds. That would allow you, similar to Curus of the Falling Star, right? Curus of the Falling Star, you get this overshield so that you can fly in, smash into something, and run back to safety. Same thing with this, right? You can run in, smack enemies, it blinds them, it applies weaken to them, it suppresses them, whatever the thing is here, scorches them. It does that to the enemies. Then you have an overshield so that you can retreat back to safety. I think that would be a fantastic change for these. And really, if that happened, you would definitely see me using these a lot more. Like getting the full melee ability back on a hit, or rather maybe not on a hit, but maybe on a kill, right? You go in, you get a kill with it, and you get, boom, full melee ability energy back, right? If you hit an enemy and it doesn't kill them, you get 50%. Or if you hit multiple enemies, you get, 5% additional per enemy that it hits. So if you, run in there and you hit a champion and it hits, 3 other champions, right? Like you get the 50%, then you get an additional 15 because it also tagged 3 other champions, right? Or 3 other enemies in general that it did not kill. I don't know. I think that Mark 44s, I literally never see anybody using these. And so I would like to see a rework to them here because they're really a pretty neat exotic that I feel like has a lot of potential. But for the last one here, where was it? I was just looking at it. Severance Enclosure. Now it's like you had to know it was coming, right? Severance Enclosure, good old bonk chess piece. This is a really fun exotic, but again, it's not good. Like it's not viable. It's not a viable thing to use on, in any sort of content, right? Like you can do some builds around it. Like, you got bonk hammer builds that could be neat. You've got Strand Titan, which has 3 melee abilities, which, again, these could be pretty good, right? But I think that this exotic needs something a little bit more, and something more than just, you know, a surge mod, right? So for this one, the exotic perk currently states powered melee final blows unleash a damaging explosion. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the radius and damage of the explosion. Here is a very, very simple thing that Bungie can do to fix it. In that explosion radius, it also applies the debuffs associated with each class, right? So, you know, you run in and you're on Strand, for example, and you melee an enemy and it explodes. All of a sudden, all the enemies around you are now affected by Sever, right? Or if you're on Solar, they've all been scorched, or on Void, they're all suppressed. Arc, they're all blinded, like something like that. I think that would bring it up to the point where it's actually a viable, you know, subclass synergizing exotic, right? Because think about it, like, you know, you go in on I apologize, Solar, for example. You run in there, you smack an enemy, it applies, you know, 60 scorch stacks. Boom, everything around you now has 60 scorch stacks. So things like Thrall and stuff will probably burn out and die. That's fantastic. Then as they burn out and die, they make sunspots if you have Sol Invictus on, you know, and so on and so forth. Or, you know, with Strand, for example, you can make Tangles much easier and stuff like that. I think that would be a really, really good change that they could make to this. And it's very simple to do. I mean, this is literally probably one of the most simple changes that they could make to this, and Felwinter and the Felwinter's Helm too. Felwinter's Helm is basically the same thing, but for Warlock. But we'll talk about Warlock tomorrow or Friday, one of those two. But I think that would be a great change for this. The other thing, and I've got it pulled up here. It says that there's a 4-second cooldown between explosions. Just remove that. I mean, really, like, everything is so fast paced in Destiny at this point. There's not a reason to have a 4-second cooldown between these explosions. Okay, and I know, again, will somebody say, well, what if somebody does a bonk build, right? And they throw a throwing hammer and they make an explosion, it scorches enemy, and then they do another one, all of a sudden everything's igniting, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we already have some incredibly powerful builds. I mean, we have Synthoset bonk build, we have, you know, there's another Titan build, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of builds that already have these insane power effects. Why not throw one more out there? Like, what would be the harm of adding like, you know, another build that can absolutely dump on everything, right? I don't know, like, that's just my thoughts on it. But I think that these three exotics, there are some other ones here, you know, obviously Helm of Saint 14 is a little bit weak right now. Phoenix Cradle, I would say, is also pretty weak. Crest of Alpha Lupi, but these are exotics I actually see being used much more frequently. Like the other three I just mentioned, I think the last time I saw, like, okay, for the first one, the last time I ever saw somebody using Mask of the Quiet One, it was a level 2, right? A Guardian rank 2 Titan, and they had on this the goofiest looking armor. Like, they didn't have shaders on it. It was, you know, you could tell it was brand new armor, and this exotic on, right? Like, that's the last time I saw somebody using it, and that's really the only time I see people using it, is when they're brand new to the game and they don't really know what else to use or what's better. So, you know, Mask of the Quiet One definitely in need of a buff, but the other two as well. Like, you know, Mark 44 stand-asides, I don't see people using them, and same thing with the other one that we mentioned. I forgot the name of it already, I'm sorry. But yeah, that is my list of exotic Titan armor pieces that I hope to see changes to in the future. So tell me your thoughts on them. Of course, I may have mentioned an exotic that you want to see changes to, or I may have failed to mention an exotic that you want to see changes to. Sorry, I cannot talk today. If so, tell me your opinion on that exotic and what you think it should do / blah blah blah. Yeah, anyways, that's it for me. My brain is a little bit fried right now. I've been off my medication for a while, so yeah. If you like the content, drop a like, helps the channel a lot. Of course, subscribe for more daily Destiny content and conversations. And do me a favor, watch the videos you see on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you will like them. Guys and gals, I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.